Is Randall joining us?
Is Randall here? Yeah.
I don't see him yet.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Not that I can't start, but
I was just talking to him 12 minutes ago.
Yeah, I don't see his name yet. Oh,
Okay.
Was it the real Randall?
Or a reasonable facsimile. Yeah.
Mr. Levitan, you have your witty hat on tonight.
Just overtired.
Punchy.
Well, I'll tell you, we've had COVID sweep to our office and it's literally wiped out 75% of the staff.
sucks.
No, I don't see. Oh, there he is. Randall's on now. Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's start the recording.
Yeah, it's on.
It's on. Okay.
Okay, so I'm
All
gonna.
right, well, thank you very much for coming tonight for the third and final Zoom session of the strategic plan, and the pillars tonight will be marketing and branding, done by Leanne Thompson, and quality insurance done by Randall Goodfellow. Brian Bainborough is on the road traveling. Hopefully he was hoping to be able to listen in and make any comments if necessary, as long as he was within cell range. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank everybody who's attended the last couple of nights, and very lively discussions and a lot of comments. And I hope you will send those written comments into before November the 13th for our this is a consultation program that we're doing, and listen to what the members' needs are, and go forth from there. So before we proceed further, John has a few house rules.
Hi, welcome back to our third night. So we ask that everyone is respectful of the presenters and the other participants tonight. We're all working towards a better maple industry for Ontario, so keep that in mind. There will be time for discussion, but please bear in mind, try and file it down and keep it succinct so that we don't go down the rabbit hole on too many things, and we can keep the discussion moving. And I may at some point, if we're really concentrating on one particular area, just step in and say, hey, let's move on now to look at something else. Also, there's a few ways you can add comments or interact with everyone else here. We have the chat going, and for those who aren't familiar, there's at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little box that says chat, or 3 dots on the far right side that you open up, and that will allow you to open the chat box. And you can send it to everyone, or you can send it to someone specific if you want to. There's also a reaction little button down there at the bottom on the menu, and you can raise your hand, and then I'll know that you want to speak. And of course, you can also just unmute and speak as well. I'll try and make sure, when I see a hand and comments in the meeting chat, I'll try and get you as soon as I can, but sometimes things have been stacking up, so I'll just keep working away at it and try and get through everyone. That's about it for that tonight. We're recording this, and we'll also be recording the comments in the chat. So Leanne, did you want to share screen with the presentation, and then we'll go from there?
Everybody see that?
Yeah, looks good.
Excellent. Okay, just
I
gonna.
really don't want to go at this lady. Oh,
Just a reminder, everyone should stay muted if they can until they want to speak.
Okay, so welcome. As Frank and John have both indicated, this is our third night. of 3 webinars. And thank you for all who have attended so far. Randall and I will be speaking this evening, and both yesterday and the day before, those webinars are on the YouTube channel for OMSPA, and this one will go there as well if you would like to listen again. So about OMSPA's strategic planning process, as an overview, to help focus limited resources on activities that deliver the most value to Ontario maple syrup product producers, every 5 years, OMSPA conducts a detailed strategic review. This review evaluates progress against previously established goals, examines how Ontario maple products market is evolving and what that means for producers. It also develops a deep understanding of the needs and wants of OMSPA's members. The outcome is a 5-year strategic plan that establishes the priorities for the organization and lays out the roadmap for achieving these priorities.
Yes, Leanne and I will go handing it back and forth to each other. She'll control the moving on to the next slide, etc. I know that a number of the folks, a significant portion, have been on the previous 2 evenings. We just wanted to touch base on this for those who haven't, because those who have been on the previous 2 meetings have seen some of these slides. Again, to emphasize here that there was over 100 OMSPA members that participated in the working groups over many weeks and many meetings. And so this draft strategic plan didn't come out of the thin air. It came out of the hard work of our members who contribute many hours. So let's go to the next one, which is the vision statement and mission statement. And we've read these before to the participants, but I'll do that again here because there's some elements in here when nobody's actually asked us about the mission and vision statements. We've read it, and there's some stuff in here that's came out of our consultations with our working group folks who wanted to make sure we included certain things, and we've been running them past people and just get the these things familiar and to make them so that you can react to them as well. The vision statement is that OMSPA envisions a robust and growing maple products industry in Ontario that embraces the highest standards of quality assurance and professionalism to provide exceptional maple products to Ontario, to Canadians, and to the international marketplaces under a brand that is synonymous with the highest quality. The growing Ontario industry embraces all producers from hobbyists to the largest commercial operation, as well as links in the maple products value chain, bottlers, equipment manufacturers, and other food industry players and researchers. We are building on and honoring the rich tradition of maple syrup production in Ontario. The mission statement basically talks about how OMSPA is going to provide leadership and stewardship of the Ontario maple products production, working on behalf of producers and maple products and the maple products value chain to support and derive adoption of best practices through ongoing education and training to increase the value of the market for Ontario maple syrup through marketing and promotional activities, and to work through government advocacy towards a policy climate that aligns with the needs of producers and the entire maple products value chain. Off of that, of course, is where our strategic plan comes. So how do we help make that come about? Let's go to the next slide then. Now, this particular slide, and as I look for it, because I printed it out. Anyway, there we go. And this is our logic model. We say, what do we ultimately want to do here? What is our ultimate objective? Our ultimate outcome is to increase the economic value for Ontario maple syrup producers. pulling us all together with that objective in mind. We have established 6 pillars. We have covered pillar number 1 and pillar number 3 on the first evening, and had the committee chairs who are currently on the board speak to pillar 1 and pillar 3, which are services for members and the whole applied research and training endeavor. Last evening, we provided pillar 5 and pillar 6, which relates to strong leadership and advocacy for the maple products producers in Ontario. And advocacy in that case speaks to government relations. And so thus we defined what those things meant. And again, they're on the website for you to review. This evening, of course, it's the pillar number 4, which is marketing and branding. And a key undertaking there is to do a substantive multi-year marketing and branding campaign. And Leanne will tell us why that's important. And the other pillar that's going to be looked at this evening is pillar 2, which is quality assurance. And that, let us understand, is in support of our marketing initiatives, our branding. It is in support of our product to meet the market needs. Let's carry on then. And this one comes for you, Leanne.
So if you've attended in the last 2 evenings, you may have seen this before, but just as an overview, this slide is providing a link of the ultimate strategic goal for all 6 pillars is to increase the economic value of the Ontario maple producers, which we saw in the previous slide that Randall just presented. So the strategic goal that was identified under the quality assurance pillar was to drive adoption of quality assurance best practices across OMSPA's membership and Ontario maple products production. And the major areas of undertaking that pillar will address are best practice manual renewal, a significant focus on member training and adoption, and serious consideration by OMSPA of a certification program in association with the proposed marketing and branding campaign. And then the second pillar that we're focusing on tonight is marketing and branding. And the strategic goal to link to the ultimate goal is to develop and execute a substantive multi-year, multi-pronged marketing branding campaign aimed at the Ontario market. And the major areas of undertaking there would be to secure funding for a multi-year campaign, secure outside expertise, and to develop and execute the campaign. So going forward, just wake my computer up, here we go. So we're going to review the overview of the marketing and branding pillar first. So a reminder, the intermediate outcome is to drive increases in demand for Ontario maple products. And the intermediate outcome is to develop and execute a substantive multi-year, marketing branding campaign aimed at the Ontario market. So the product differentiation and market development working group took a detailed look at the role of marketing and product differentiation in delivering increased value to Ontario maple syrup producers. The working group concluded that branding and market development is crucial to the future financial success of OMSPA members. And it further found that there's an opportunity for OMSPA to develop a unique brand for Ontario maple syrup with a carefully thought out product differentiation essential, or with carefully thought out product differentiation essential to the development of a successful maple syrup brand. So a reminder, you can find all of the working group webinars and papers on the OMSPA website. So you can read in detail what the working group put forward. The group noted that OMSPA does not have the required expertise within its membership to develop a comprehensive market branding strategy, and therefore needs to bring on board professional food branding expertise to work closely with OMSPA's Marketing and Promotions Committee. And it also noted that this brand initiative should be regarded as updating and revisiting the Sweet Ontario campaign from 2014 to 2015, taking care to capture and build on the value that's already been created within that Sweet Ontario brand. 3 factors that we highlighted, that was highlighted by the group as essential to the success was effective brand development requires consistent investment and effort over an extended period of time. Effective branding requires a significant investment in the organizational culture, i.e. OMSPA's culture. And it is essential to establish clear and realistic performance goals from the outset with measurement to those milestones to make sure they're being met. And if it is successfully executed, the proposed multi-year marketing branding campaign can positively influence sales of the Ontario maple syrup regionally and provincially. So here on the chart that we're looking at is a timeline to actually that's proposed within the draft strategic plan to implement what was recommended by the working group. So early in 2013, the first activities would be to revise the mandate of the Marketing and Promotions Committee that encourages oversight for a multi-year, multi-pronged marketing campaign, that would be done by revising the committee mandate. The next output would be a multi-year funding for OMSPA's marketing branding campaign. It needs to be secured. So we would have to develop a proposal, engage government funding targets, and secure funding. And at that point, we would have a fully developed and costed comprehensive marketing and branding campaign, including a performance management framework. So we would work through securing outside expertise to develop the campaign, develop a comprehensive market branding campaign, engage the membership on the campaign, and ratification of the planned campaign by the board. And moving into the end of this strategic plan time frame would be the multi-year marketing branding campaign that is executed with excellence. So we would have the required external resources secured for executing the campaign. The campaign would be launched and we would measure its success against key performance indicators. Would you like me to move forward, Randall?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay.
I didn't know if you want to say something more, but I'm sure.
No,
we'll have
I
opportunity to talk. There we go.
just want to make sure I'm following the format
Yep.
that has been in previous webinars. Okay.
Quality assurance. Previously, we've stated as well that the quality assurance was in support of the brand that we have or are creating to make sure that we actually walk the talk about what we make our brand. Or what our brand already is. And so the quality assurance group got together again over that same time frame, knowing that it was responding to the product and the marketplace. And so the first output we have here is an updated and improved best practices manual. And something that is new is 2 manuals, actually, one targeting more the hobbyist scale of operation and one targeting the commercial producers. There's going to be obviously some commonalities. There will be some differences as well. And each of those, of course, to do that, we have a number of activities. Can we broke them down into developing a proposal? Actually, something's in process now because it was updating the best practices manual was an ongoing activity and objective. We wanted to list it here because it fits within our time frame we're discussing. Then we will secure the funding that is in play now, and hopefully that we will know something about that by the first quarter 2023. We will need some outside expertise on some elements of this, whether it is certain chapters, whether it is how to lay it out in an easy format to access, etc. And then by the fourth quarter 2024, we will actually have developed the product itself, which is those update best practices manuals. It doesn't mean that we won't be able to do some providing of information between now and then, or running things related to best practices. It just means by 2024, the fourth quarter, we will actually have a fully fleshed out product, which could be, depending on what's indicated by people working on this. Is it courses? Is it videos? Is it webinars? Whatever that happens to be able to convey the best practices. And that's what I'd say about that now. We can talk a bit more about it. The idea as well, and this other output, which is training and educational programs, is to make sure that when we develop the best practices manual, that and get it out in whatever format that's most appropriate for the various audiences, that we actually actively put it out, meaning that we will work with our members to identify their key priorities, and also for training related to best practices, and also develop the actual course material. So it's more than just the manual. It's how do you work people to help train them in this regard to understanding best practice manual. So that was one of the other outputs. And then ultimately, once we've figured out how to put the courses together, the key topic areas that our members want to explore within the best practices manual, we will deliver training and education based upon that. We'll be doing continued updates of where we're at in the process and things that as they arrive. They would be in the e-news, they will be in the mainline, various updates as things are happening, or as we see things happening in other jurisdictions in North America that are maple producers, which will help us understand where things are heading or what other people are doing and what we might learn from them. And so that's a regular ongoing update process. We will work with and find and identify and secure the parties who will deliver the educational training. That may morph over time, let's put it that way. Ultimately, possibly, if we get the Mart Center launched the way we hope it would be, which is a joint venture that we would actually have control over, that we use this best practice manual as part of the training, that the overall training that could be provided to our members. And then, of course, once we find the people to do the job, we then deliver the training and education to the memberships, and those are our target dates for do that. I've sort of got into the fourth item of output, was the applied research and technology staff, is that as we get the course materials ready, as we get the best practices manual ready, and we may well have a need at that point to have staff look after some of these training initiatives. And so that's what we would look to have funded, look to have transferred to Mart in 2025. And ultimately, if it all works together, we will have all that training and education provided through Mart in 2026. So that is, these are the steps that we will take from an activities perspective. We know that under each one of these steps, there's a whole myriad of other sub-steps to undertake. And one of the reasons we laid it out this way is that it's an accountability process for the work we're going to do in quality assurance, accountability, board accountability. So if you take on the role of quality assurance, you know that there are certain things that to be achieved by certain times, and there's certain steps to do it. And that is what is being proposed for the quality assurance component of the Strat plan, i.e. This particular pillar. I think those were our slides, weren't they, Leanne? So throw it back to John.
Okay, so at this point, I'd ask if people could, if they have any questions or comments, please type them in the chat. Raise your hand, unmute, and we can start some discussion. Marty, you put your video on. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Surprisingly, I have nothing to say.
Okay.
Not normal for me. I've been trained that when everybody's screen comes up, I also turn my camera on.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. We could pick one of the pillars and start with that. Potentially, Leanne, would you feel comfortable we talk about the marketing side of things and see if anyone has any questions there?
Yeah.
Sure. Did you want me to put anything back up, or are we comfortable staying?
Let's put it back up.
Maybe we put it back up.
little
Yeah.
Slide there.
Okay. Challenging me. Share my screen.
It's Ray. I wanted to share, Leanne, when you're doing that for the folks on the call, that the product differentiation campaign is delicate in acquiring funding through the federal government in particular for marketing because of a perceived competition with Quebec. And all through the application for funding, we needed to be careful and mindful that we did not openly state that we were competing with Quebec to kick them off the shelves. Ontario is a huge domestic market for the Quebec maple syrup industry, huge. All through the Walmart, President's Choice, food chains. And so all of our wording was silent on the strategy of trying to suggest that our syrup was superior to Quebec syrup, which we were careful to avoid. So it's something for us as we comment into the strategic plan to be mindful about, and to be really strategic in regards to how we position ourselves as an industry.
Ray, you're referring, well, not necessarily just referring to, but for me, it brings to mind the Canada Maple promotion that Quebec did into Ontario, last year or the year before?
Yes, last fall.
Yeah.
Yes, which was wildly successful. Yeah. From a maple industry point of view, which, as you know, I'm on the Canadian Roundtable and supported that. However, it was syrup from Canada, not syrup from Quebec, which was the moniker, and that it would help Ontario sales, and I'm convinced it did help Ontario sales dramatically. Where I'm coming from is we as an organization need to be really mindful not to openly compete with the funders, both the federal government and the Ontario government, on that we're going to compete with Quebec. They don't want to hear it. It'll harm our application process when we're seeking money for a campaign. So and I don't think it needs to be articulated in the strategy in the plan, but we all need to be mindful of that.
Ray, the desire here, of course, is to understand what Ontario consumers view as valuable in their buying decision.
Yes. And
we will speak to that without saying anything negative about Quebec. So we need to know what we need to speak to, right, to become a preferred product.
I'm with you totally. I'm with you totally.
For example, if consumers say, I want to be assured that this product is produced from an environmentally friendly perspective, if that is really key to a certain demographic, well, we have to develop not only messages about that, but also a way in demonstrating that has been the case, that it's really true.
Yeah, I'm with you. And that's where we need to be really strategic and mindful of that. So yeah, I'm with you, Randall.
And Ray, the working group is right on board with you, and we're very clear that any marketing and branding needs to, yeah, I think it was very explicit, not compete with Quebec, but in fact build on, you know, the existing work that's being done.
Exactly, George. And the government doesn't want to hear competition, and they just don't want to hear it. So we need to understand that. That's my point. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
There's a question. Bill Hubbard made a comment in the chat, asking why Sweet Ontario is only mentioned in the text, but not specifically mentioned in the table outputs. And does this mean that we're actually leaving Sweet Ontario behind, or is there? Leanne, can you answer that question?
I think the recommendation from the working group was to build on Sweet Ontario and the work and investment that's been done to that. So is it just that it's not in the draft? Is that Bill's concern that it's not in the draft strategic plan, or is it not in this table that we're looking at?
Well, it's not in this table. I'm not sure if it's not mentioned in the strategic plan.
Yeah, I asked George, but it's in there.
Yeah, I know it was a recommendation of the working group. Specifically, we started out unsure about what, where that was, but after great discussions, it was evident that there was value in the Sweet Ontario branding, and that was kind of anything going forward would build upon the existing value that's there. I'm not sure if that, Bill, that's what your concern is, if it's not in this table, like the output and activities.
Bill, do you want to unmute or?
Yeah, no, I think if you can hear me, well, yeah, that's sort of exactly what I was getting at when like the wording marketing branding campaign is mentioned at least twice in the table, but it doesn't say a Sweet Ontario marketing branding campaign. So if it said a Sweet Ontario marketing branding campaign, then my question would be gone. My concern would be gone. It's just when I see it says it's going to build on it, but then it doesn't follow it up in the table and specifically say Sweet Ontario, then that kind of leaves leeway to say, oh, we can develop a new brand. We want to build, as Leanne has indicated, the committee has recommended that we build on what's there. So I think it's just important if we just add that, marketing branding Sweet Ontario campaign, then I think I'm good, and I can't speak for everybody else, but that's all I was looking for.
Okay.
I can add to that, Leanne, is on page 13 of the strategic plan. It states straight right in there. It was noted that the brand strategy initiative should be regarded as an updating and revisiting of OMSPA's Sweet Ontario campaign, taking care to capture and build on the value that it has built.
Just for the folks on the call, it's Ray, and I led that, and some members on the call here tonight were on the committee. We dealt with that back in 2013-14. Was a that was a $55,000 project where we hired agrisynthesis to help us with that. And this was a recommendation. And as you all get emails every week from website experts that say, I can improve your website and just trust me, it is what it is. And I'm not defensive about it, but how, we've been at it for 7 years now. How can we measure the success of it? And then 2, how do we build on it if it has been successful?
Yeah, and that's, we need to update our understanding of our clients and how they're receiving it, but it was to use that and put it, I hate to say it, but put it on steroids in a sense. But also at the same time, a brand is something that you may start with, but you actually have to promote it and defend it and evaluate it and to focus it to specific audiences. And we never ever got the funding to take that much activity on. And that might have been, that's what we're trying to do now, is like let's really support the brand.
I think that's ultimately what the working group concluded, was that there was value in the brand and there were recommendations to roll out, some of which OMSP has been able to do from the initial consultation process of creating the brand, but without a consistent plan and funding model for that plan. It like I describe it as a bit of whack-a-mole, like you can only do what's in the current budget cycle. So there's value there to build on, but we need to make sure that we consistently plan in order to have it executed and realize its value. So that's where the recommendations came from the working group.
There's,
That's-
sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I was just gonna say, no, that's good clarification. I think, I mean, Frank sees it in the text and points that out. That's good. And I saw that as well. And all I was looking for was to make sure that we were okay. I can send in a suggested edit. Just wanted to make sure it was okay to suggest we would carry that into the table. So in the table, if we have Sweet Ontario in there a couple of times and with reference to our marketing campaign, then that addresses the concern. It sounds like everybody's on the same page. So that's great.
Thank you, Bill, and thanks for bringing that up. And I actually had written into John on the same thing, because there has been concerns by a few other people saying that they thought we were changing direction in our branding, and we're not. And you have to remember that we had a really good campaign going in 2019 that would have came out in 2020, and COVID effectively killed that advertising program, where Sweet Ontario would be a bigger household name now. I think what we need to look at is, and I don't know if we can put it into the strat plan, is that we need to get it out to our consumers better, Leanne. We've got producers out there yet don't know what Sweet Ontario is supposed to mean. So it's maybe something that we can do better there.
And I think that's why the strat plan or the draft strategic plan has like the multi-pronged aspect of it. So to make sure that we're reaching members, whether it's our like all sides of our members, whether they're bulk selling or like realizing the value of that Sweet Ontario, making sure consumers are aware of it, making sure our members realize the value of it. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So we need to make sure we're focusing. This is the strategic plan is wanting us to come up with a plan in order to focus the resources in the best and most effective way.
Leanne, that segues into a question from Maple Bluff. Has thought gone into the direction that many consumers are going, purchasing directly from local farms? Sometimes it's the relationship that matters, and why aren't we empowering our members to engage instead of a customer, instead of a global Ontario trend? I would just caution that this is a plan, right? Like the specifics have not been worked out. So there's going to be a marketing plan developed, and it may include elements of that, but that has not been predetermined. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Leanne.
Yeah, I don't think that it has been predetermined right now. We looked at what OMSP is doing in terms of marketing and promotion activities, and we've been trying to diversify.
Barclays comment.
Just whether it's agritourism or education or the Sweet Ontario brand, but by diversifying, we're also spreading our funds across multiple areas. So we have some, the store that helps with consumers reaching. Like getting the Sweet Ontario brand straight into the hands, whether through its books or the labels. So I think that what we're really looking for is having a food brand specialist help our members, like help us develop the brand and to best execute the deliverable of increasing the demand and economic return for our members. So that might be something at direct to consumers, farm gate, or also in the grocery stores. I don't think we know, the working group does not have that expertise to say what it should be, ultimately, is what we determined.
But at the same time, Leanne, the working group did discuss the importance of direct to consumer by producers. It was highly recognized. We just need to know how best to support it.
And from this, I would envision, it's been 8 years since we have adopted and adapted the Sweet Ontario campaign and brand. And we've had an implementation plan that has been quite successful given our funding to review our plan and our approach, and to secure funding to reevaluate and relook at how do we sharpen the saw? How do we increase the amount of marketing potential with that brand? So that to me would be an outcome, an activity in the plan that we could adopt.
There's a comment from Ryan Barkley that may be useful to look at the wine industry and its VQA program. And in fact, if you go back into some of those reports, Brian, there is discussion. Randall, remind me, I think is that in the jurisdiction scans and things?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
I know we've talked a lot about the Ontario Beekeepers Association in previous webinar evenings, but that wasn't the only one we looked at. We did look at the wine industry, how they're divided up into 5 different entities to do various different things, and how they created a stand-alone or a third-party advertising branding campaign entity, like a incorporated entity to do that. Yeah, there was a lot that can be and should be learned from them, and they also tell us that they shouldn't have split into 5 different individual initiatives, because sometimes it's hard to coordinate. So we have learned some lessons from them, and there's more to be learned. But that's why it needs a person with a food branding expertise to learn to really pull the real details out of the wine industry stuff. But the wine industry is, of course, a good comparable for us from a marketing and promoting perspective.
So Brian, from an International Maple Syrup Institute approach, when I was the president, we did a very deep dive on this internationally between the US and Canada, with an association based in, I think, France, who have patented champagne and Parmesan cheese and Beaujolais wine, and that the board of IMSI deemed that it was just way too subjective to be able to try to market terroir, right? That the soil from Waterloo, Wellington produced different syrup than the soil from the Beauce in Quebec, from New Brunswick, from Eastern Ontario, from Nova Scotia, or Connecticut, or Indiana. And so we basically joined this organization that existed, and we backed away. It was way too complicated and way too subjective to be able to put a sticker, a brand on a flavor from an area.
Brian, we have another Brian Bartley. We have Barkley and Bartley. So Brian Bartley has said, from a marketing perspective, I think it would be helpful to have a large packaging plant that could take in bulk syrup and produce quantities of syrup sufficient to get into large chain stores. Not sure how we manage a brand with about 700 individual producers, consistency issues. I guess really that gets to the quality assurance side of things, doesn't it? That we have to have some sort of consistency across our marketing and our quality.
Hopefully everyone's read the bottling plant feasibility study.
Yeah. And I can send it to you if you would like to see it. In fact, it's probably on the website, but if it isn't, I can send it to you. Nelson McLaughlin asks, where do maple festivals and pancake house operations come into marketing? Again, I think, and there's a few other questions like this. Xavier was asking about social media. Are we going to focus on that? There's a lot of discussion about social media when we did this, and that was a recommendation from the branding expert we talked to. But again, it comes back to, we need to have the experts help us with this, because they know what they're doing. Leanne, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I agree. We've taken that, in the last 5 to 7 years, and then even like decades for the festivals locally within Amstel. We've had Maple Weekend, Fall in Love with Maple. We've supported events like the Royal Winter Fair, and then within our own regions, Maple festivals. And all of that takes resources and helps elevate Ontario Maple. That has, yeah, so that has an impact. And also, we've supported those through social media. So I think we've looked at how we've done it and the limited resources that we have to work with. And we really need the support from somebody looking at it from a food brand perspective to help us roll that out. And I think that we would be looking at all of the outputs, their sales channels, including things like that. I don't think that was a very good answer.
Well, Leanne, I would suggest that people who want to look at that in more detail to understand why we've come to the conclusion that internally ourselves as volunteers, we don't have the expertise to look at this. The working group presentation actually has a component in there, which was what was given to us by the international marketing expert who volunteered his time, and quite a list of clients he has internationally. And he said, these are the types of things that has to be looked at for you to reaffirm what are the most appropriate ways for you to get the word out to the right audiences who you can influence to buy your product at a better price. And so it's worthwhile going onto the website to look at that. And it could well be these local festivals are fantastic to do that. But let us not just think they are, hope they are. Let us find out that they are, so it's time to check some of our assumptions.
Yeah, I think that you're right. That presentation really kind of brought it all to focus for the working group. And it's really excellent. It's excellent. It's in the link to it, I believe, is in the working group. It's worth a watch if you didn't attend it. And it will just help us determine the why we're doing things and link that back to a measurable metric to make sure that it's being done for the right reason for the membership.
Okay. Again, I think in some of these comments, we're really getting down into, details. And we don't have those. We have ideas and also a plan, but not the details. So
I see a good volunteer though. There are a couple of good volunteers for putting on the committee to work those ideas out though.
Yes.
Good ideas.
That's true.
Very, very good ideas. And I think they should be chairing that committee because that would really keep an active social media campaign going. So
it's worth reminding folks, we haven't made all of the decisions for the next 5 years. We've actually made no decisions other than to work hard to help increase the economic value of maple products for our members, the returns. And it has gone a number of lines of inquiry or endeavor or activities. We need people to work with along the way here to get the meat and potatoes fully described and understood, and then pick up the load and carry it forward. And so that's really what I want to say about a strategic plan. Is like, here's the areas that we're going to put efforts into. We don't know specifically each and every outcome for the next 5 years. That's impossible to know. That we're not going to determine that from one central location. It's in conjunction with all the members that want to volunteer and put the time in to do it.
I would suggest at this point, we're almost to 8:30, that maybe we shift the focus to quality assurance, unless there's any burning questions someone has on marketing.
John, maybe Mark Curls. How are we protecting the brand when any producer from any place can purchase a container and put a quality in and put any quality in?
Well,
and that I understand that. That's Mark, if I can just talk to that. That is a pet peeve of mine, has been at the board for the last number of years. And there are ways to protect our brand. It's whether we want to do it or not, or go out there to do it. And that's going to be up to the membership to decide whether the OMSPA can do it or not.
And again, that's a detail we'll have to figure out, right? So,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
But it's a very, very good point, Mark, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay. Any other quick points there before we move over to quality assurance? Okay, Leanne, do you want to change the screen to that table? There we go. Okay, so anybody want to ask a question or a comment on this area of discussion?
If I could start it off there, Randall, the best practices manual, and I believe Bob Snyder is on the call tonight, on the webinar, when he and his group did the survey of our members. It was something that was highly regarded and valued by our members. And so our commitment here is to get that job done, put it in formats that are most easily usable by our members. It might be paper fashion, but it may be something totally different and as well type of thing, and to get it oriented towards different scales of producers. And so that's where the best practice manual comments come in there, the outputs we're trying to achieve, but not just produce a document or materials, but actually actively take it out to our members.
So I could stir the pot here a bit and note that there is potential for do we look at a certification as part of our quality assurance, and that is mentioned in the report, that there could be a possibility of examining that as part of support for marketing program.
Let's roll back to that slide there, Leanne, or whoever's in control of the slides at the moment. There's one slide where something like that is mentioned. Back. There we go. Whoop, missed it. Whoop, went too far. Next slide after this one. There we go. Okay, quality assurance.
This seems to have been a lightning rod, any mention of certification. So if there's some discussion, this is the time to have it.
John, my question originally, it's Steve here, I'm not going to type it out, is just to wonder.
Yeah, go for it.
What angles of certification would be implemented? Is it what we currently have, third party, organic, CFIA, or are we looking at, as the beekeepers are, we go back to that all the time. Is it going to be a mandatory certification throughout Ontario? If you sell syrup, you have to join this membership. And I'm not sure you guys can answer that, but I'm thinking it keeps coming up. So there has to be some form, and John, you bring it up again tonight and appreciate that, some form of a plan of delivering something to somebody somewhere about this.
So just to help here, there's Ray, the board helped me probably 4, 5, 6 years ago. Our OMSPA board ratified a motion and voted on that OMSPA would pursue and support third-party certification. Now, didn't specify what that would look like, and there's different types, as you mentioned, Steve, but we've already have that on the books as an organization. I don't know what that means. We could take it off the books or augment that down the road, but it's already been voted on.
So that type of certification's there, but that's a voluntary, Ray. voluntary part for anybody, whether they want to join it or not. That's not a
Right.
mandatory
Right.
government mandatory label, right?
That's right, Steve, but it shows that the organization, the association
Supports it.
supports it.
Yeah, okay, and I get 100%.
Yeah, I could probably add into this, Steve, the reason why it was bolded here in association with the proposed marketing branding campaign. Whenever the marketing branding campaign says this particular marketplace wants to know such and such about our maple syrup, and if we can show them that that is the case, they are prepared to buy more of it or more of it at a higher price. So if all of a sudden people say, we've got to make sure that proper forestry practices have been undertaken in the sustainable forestry practices undertaken in these woodlots. Well, we can't say, sure, we have. We were probably going to have to put in place something that would say, it's been checked and they are. Okay, before we can claim something, if it's going to be meaning anything, it needs to be put in place. So that's what that could be, something of that nature. The other one, as I think I mentioned the other evening, is that Paul Renault, one of our members, been working on a maple syrup, calculating the GHGs produced or the carbon sequestered by maple syrup production as a carbon neutral, carbon negative product. And if we are going to say that, we need to be able to validate that that is the case on anybody who wants to say that and we are assured that that is the case. Okay, so that's where some of that is, so that we call it certifications. Whatever you like. It's like making sure that what we say in our marketing branding actually is real and it's provable. And that's where that fits in. That's why it was in support of the marketing and branding campaign. So it's not going to be done ahead of time. It's going to be done based upon an accepted marketing branding campaign approach as to what's required to meet the criteria of what we claim in our marketing branding.
To me, I'm going to take off my moderator hat for a minute, if that's all right.
You're a producer, John, like the rest of us.
Yeah, so I'll put my producer hat on. Well, first, actually, I think it's more my executive director hat, because I've been listening to a lot of all the discussion on this. And it seems to me that the potential for certification, a program of some kind, breaks down in several different ways. It could be like a certification of courses. So for example, and we're talking about marketing stuff here, so this may not apply in this case, but that may mean our Mart Center has certain courses that you have to have taken to be considered an RO specialist, or maybe that is part of the Maple marketing program. There's certain courses you need to have taken to be part of that marketing program. And then that could apply to quality too. Like we had our old quality, seal of quality program. And then there's the side of food safety. Personally, now I'm putting that hat on. I'm worried that I'm going to come to a point, I'm kind of a small commercial producer. I'm going to come to a point where they won't let me wholesale in stores unless I have some sort of food safety certification. And so do I go to CFIA, or is there some way that OMS can help me with that? Or maybe they help me to move to CFIA. But I think to me, those are sort of the different ways that it breaks down. And if we aren't at least thinking and examining this stuff, it may come and blindside us, and we may be behind the curve. We may have, government come down and say, we have to be food safety certified, or you have to wholesale in a store. And if we aren't already at least understanding that situation, how are we going to respond to it? And we're going to be told what to do instead of being able to build what we would like to do.
Yeah.
So those are kind of some of the issues that I see. And so I don't think that, like, a lot of the comments coming up, people are saying, we just need to, certification, that word should not be in there. But I think that's just putting the blinders on. And I'm not saying that we have to have a certification program, but I really do agree with this serious consideration part that we need to at least understand what's going on and look at it and make the decision, you know. So my 2 cents. Sorry, I will go back to clicking
No.
things here.
Thank you very, very much. And I'm glad you brought that up because there are things going on outside of Ontario, and maybe a lot of people don't even know. And I'm going to give you a really good sample. It was in the Maple News a while back. Indiana, you cannot sell maple syrup out of your sugar house. Now, that would be really nice if that came into Ontario. That is done by the government of Indiana. You cannot sell syrup out of your sugar house.
You have to be inspected as well. Your sugar house has to be inspected in
Wisconsin.
sorry, that's Wisconsin. Yes.
Yes,
Sorry, I thought you were
Wisconsin
talking
has to
about
have your sugar house registered.
Yeah.
Maine has to have your sugar house registered. Vermont and New York are starting to inspect. In Quebec, you have to have an MAPAQ to sell maple syrup in stores. If you
And
don't,
what is it? What is an MAPAQ, Frank? Just
it's
to help people.
it's a food handling certificate.
Yep. So we're not advocating that
Anything.
certain things should happen. We are saying we better watch this extremely closely and react as we need, or proactively move towards some understanding of what we would like to have be the world we live in versus somebody else dictating the world we live in.
John, can I step in here?
Yeah, please, Bob.
Yep.
Sorry.
So I'm speaking as a small producer. And I will probably never be large enough to be CFIA certified. So I don't have that ability to tell customers I have that type of certification. When we started here 5 or 6 years ago, we decided to use the Royal Winter Fair as a way of bringing credibility and showing our customers that we produced good syrup. And we have done a reasonable job of being in the top 5 in different categories over the years. But it would be beneficial to us as a small producer to continue to expand our operation, to be able to inform our customers that we are a certified producer, that we meet some criteria, and that they can have people who don't know me or know our operation can have some confidence that we are producing maple syrup to some standard. And so I know people talk about we don't want red tape, and I will agree. I do worry about a certification program that will bog me down because I'm basically a 1.5 man operation. I don't want to get bogged down in red tape, but I also want to be able to let my customers know that I am producing to some standard. Currently, the Royal Winter Fair is the only way I can convince customers, not convince, but let customers know that we are producing good quality syrup. Thanks.
Yeah, that's become your brand, is appreciated by the Royal Winter Fair to award you, some recognition. But in many senses, it's a matter of you figuring out what it is. It's your program to get the recognition. So, Bob, for example, if you said, I also wouldn't mind taking a food handling or food safety course to say that I have that as well. And that could be another way of communicating with your market too. Things of that nature. Is that what you're thinking?
Sure, any type of, I do have a food handling certificate, so, but we don't advertise that, but to be able to say I'm a certified producer, I think would help with expanding our sales.
And I agree with you, Bob. I'm a little bit bigger producer. We're just under 3,000 taps, but I don't want to become CFIA. I don't want to be involved in the red tape that like Chris Wagler and Bill Hubbard and everybody else who's CFIA have to go through. That's more red tape than I want to be into. But at the same time, I try to tell my customers, I am an OMSPA member and I have a member producer number now that I put on my products. I am member producer number 192. And you can look that up and you can call the office and yes, I'm there. And now, does it mean anything? Not a damn thing at this point, but at least it gives me some credibility.
Maple Bluff has their hand up.
Us again. We just
Yeah.
wanted to share that I don't know why we're putting so much work into a maple certification when all of us can get food certified by public health. We just had the inspector come through here as our kitchen is certified as a commercial kitchen, and he came up to the sugar house and certified that as well. So now we can put our card in the window of our shop, and you need that if you're going to be at any farmer's market anyway. Any farmer's market requires you to have certification. Maple farms are actually exempt from some of that. And if you're producing any maple products, you should have a certified commercial kitchen anyway. So if you're producing anything outside of regular maple products that aren't exempt, so you just have to call your local public health. The inspector is going to come out. They're not going to do very much. He was extremely friendly and just wanted to make sure that we did everything the way that they need it done. And then we're certified. And now you have an actual certification that's recognized by across the board and by anybody who's ever gone to a restaurant and looked in the window and see their food safety certificate that's right there. The other one, and I think Terry touched on this, and a few other producers are organic certified. So if you're looking at forestry management, we're going through that process right now on our farm, the organic certification, and that's also recognized far more by consumers than it is anybody else. And when you have about 2 minutes with your customer to talk about why your farm and why they should buy your maple syrup, all they care about is seeing those labels. And the food safety is one of the biggest things that anybody is looking at, because that means you have to have your food handler certificate, which all of us should have anyway. And maybe a great option would be for OMSPA to subsidize that so that it's a $100 course. It's recognized across the province, and maybe OMSPA needs to put some effort into actually subsidizing that instead of putting so much funding into a MART program. And the other thing I'd like to say is, you know, the board has talked a lot about that nothing is set in stone and everything is ideas right now. This is a plan in progress, but there's a lot of talk about this MART that is set in stone. Almost every page of this strategic plan, it's listed there. So anything that's written in plain language in a strategic plan, for the members who don't know, any committee that goes into that strategic plan to work on those pillars can take that to their interpretation and run with it. And I think it's really, really important for our members to understand that. You have 32% of the members who actually responded to the customer survey about the membership. 32% of the membership actually gave their feedback. And are you looking at members? How many members are producing and selling to processors? How many members are producing and selling to the public, are selling to grocery stores? Have you broken all of that down? I think all these things really need to be fleshed out and shared with the membership. It's important for people to know this information, and I don't think it's being shared, and it's scaring a lot of people. And we've talked offline with several other producers about this.
Kayla, I think you're assuming that, you know, there's some hidden agenda here. Much of that information is available in the working group reports. And so I would ask you to go and look at those.
I have.
And go from there. So, this is not a conspiracy that's going on here.
But I'm not using those words. I'm not using those words. I'm sharing that there's a lot of information and content that not everybody knows about. And it does need to be shared in plain language. And Randall, you've said several times that this stuff isn't set in stone, but you're all talking about MART. Very clearly, you're saying, do we do certification at MART? And you're talking about it, and it's written everywhere in here as a decision that has a specific outcome coming in 2025-26. So I'm not using the words conspiracy or anything like that. I'm just sharing. And if this is an association that is by members for members, then everybody deserves to speak and everybody deserves to share. And we all have a lot of past experience that's really, really important. And I think that all of the members deserve to know what all of our past experience is and be able to draw from that. This is so important. I'm not accusing anyone of conspiracy. I'm saying that this needs to be flushed out a lot more. It needs to be shared a lot more transparently, and people need to know in plain language. The reason people are not reading these reports is because they don't understand it. It's too jargony. There's too much information. You need to be able to share it really clearly with people and help them, because these are the ones that you're actually helping. These are the ones that you want to hear from. I'm not the only one. I'm just the only one.
Okay, Kayla, sorry, I'm gonna ask you if you can just hold off there now, and would anyone like to respond to that?
I got my hand up, John. It's Ray. So there's 33 people on this call out of 600 members. So the opportunity is open for everybody to be involved, to understand the thinking that's gone into the process. And as far as back to the certification program, I'm going to take Frank or whoever wants to come with me to a site where it's the most incredible site to make syrup in the world, and they sell at farmers markets. And the issue is we don't want to be on the front page of the B2 of the Ottawa Citizen or the Toronto Star or the London Free Press. So while we can argue that let us individual members go ahead and do our marketing, our quality, our this, our branding, all that good stuff, it's behooves us as an organization to look at the big picture. And that's what we're trying to do here. And will we bring everybody online? No. The 600 members make about 75 to 80% of Ontario's syrup. There's 3,000 producers that claim income from maple on their income tax. Okay, so there's an existing 2,400 that are not part of OMSPA. All right, be that what it may. But the 600 produce most of the syrup. So it's incumbent upon us to provide the leadership to set a standard and to be able to stand behind it. And so whatever third-party certification, again, I go back to the board has already ratified the support for third-party certification. We've already done that as a board, and the board directors are elected and entrusted with that from the 11 chapters, locals. And unless we want to change that, which I don't think we do, then having a third-party certification, I would say accelerated, but messaged is a good thing.
Ray, it's Randall. There was some comments earlier on about how people can just use the OSPA jugs and the Sweet Ontario and
saw them.
whatever they want. Now,
Yeah,
that relates to this significantly because
it's a tough one.
Yeah, it does. But the same thing is like somebody must have made that the comment because they've seen misuse of our brand and misuse of our jugs. And we have to find a way that when it's the syrup in the jug is actually from somebody from OMSPA that's following best practice, et cetera, et cetera. So those issues are all tied together here too as well. So, you know, how do you protect your brand? It's both by making sure that those who that don't make the quality syrup that needs to be made, don't stick them in our jugs, but also at the same time trying to help our own members make the quality syrup that is proudly put in our jugs.
Yeah, you're right. And we had consultants come in to talk about how do you verify that the syrup in that jug is really high quality. And so suggestion in previous board discussions was a separate producer number. Who's going to manage that, and how do we enforce that? We're not an enforcement agency. We're an advocacy, education, membership agency. And the leadership at the time decided that we would have the OMSPA jugs, for example, available province-wide without any type of criteria. That was a decision made at the time. And our equipment suppliers, our vendors that sell bottles and equipment fought back fairly strongly that you don't make me be the policeman For John Williams is a member, so he gets an OMSPA jug. Joe Schmo from Kokomo is not a member, so he does not get an OMSPA mug. They just said, don't do that to us. So really almost impossible to manage. So it's a good point.
Bill, you had something you wanted to add to the discussion?
Yeah, I put the comment up, John, when we were talking about CFIA and certifications, and I just wanted to, some of the producers are not, are more recent and may not be familiar with sort of how CFIA worked in the past. And we had our certification with CFIA going back between 25 and 30 years ago. And at that time, there was either a packing plant certification or a producer. So a producer could have a pretty simple certification with CFIA at that time. And it was basically, not a whole lot of paperwork. It was just an annual inspection, right? So, I mean, I know times have changed and it's much more complex now, but my concern, to sort of kind of share with people is, if we think that we're going to, we're not going to be able to easily create some sort of certification program that's going to get us into the stores. Like I've been in touch with other stores that I would like to get into. And I've said, and they said before we had CFIA, and I said, look, I can hire a consultant to come in and provide an audit and so on. They're not happy unless it's fully third party. So it has to be pretty strongly third party before it's really going to be recognized. And if we create something else, great, we do all this work, we create something else, we still have a problem because the small producers still can't. We have a lot of producers, small producers in Ontario that are exporting syrup out of the province. Everybody has a website and they're all, free shipping. They're shipping stuff to Manitoba. You can't do that legally without being CFIA registered. So creating a separate, another certification program, maybe what we need to look at, I mean, I'm sure it's been done already, but I think we need to go back to CFIA and work with them to make, another category that addresses our needs, because then it stays third party. It allows our producers to do what they're already doing right now. Almost every producer in Ontario is exporting syrup out of the province illegally. So we need to get that legal. So my thought is we need to be working with CFIA to come up with a category that works for everybody. That was my message.
Yeah,
Great suggestion, Bill. It also supports the need to have some focused relationships with different levels of government to problem solve and work through these new approaches.
Chris, you had something to say? Chris Wagler?
Nelson.
You're unmute. No, you're still on mute. Yeah. Yeah, Nelson. Yeah, go to Nelson then.
Oh, I kind of lost my train of thought, but just with Bill's last thing there, I've talked to is about this before. He's talking about CFIA shipping out of province and by mail and stuff like that. But then we have I just sent in there like the bulk syrup too. There's lots of bulk syrup released in Ontario. That's just made by regular producers too. So, but I was hoping Chris was going to come in there, and then I was going to follow his lead to see what he was.
He's I think he's unmuted now. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't get my unmute button there. No, I was just going to comment. Like when Kayla was speaking there about clarity, I think that might be helpful for most of us on here. If there was like being very clear, I just didn't think it was charitable to say, hey, that borders on conspiracy theories. I just put the comment in the chat there because I thought you guys had skipped over, but that's what I was going to talk about a little bit. Like we want some clarity on what is going to change as a result of our concerns. Like, is this going to bring about change? Like, for example, we had talked about, we do not want mandatory certification. We want to remove red tape, especially, and you said it well, John, as a small producer, you don't want to have to think about all that stuff for you. So think about it on a personal level. How can OMSBA as a board help to cut the red tape by maybe pushing back against some of the government stuff that would come down? That was more the thing I wanted to comment on.
As in what Bill was saying, you mean? I mean, because Bill's talking about certification there, so it's not necessarily mandatory, and that's not a given with what's written there. It doesn't say mandatory certification, so.
I think the best way is, Randall, to understand what we're trying to suggest here is that there's stuff happening, there's stuff likely to happen. We will keep very close to it to understand where it's heading. Whether we need to cut it off at the pass or whether it's got a force of its own that we can't cut off, we got to make sure that it's doable for our members versus having something that is imposed upon us that's not workable at all. And so that's the last thing we want to have, is something that's imposed upon us. So we got to be proactively understanding what it's all about and finding any problems and addressing them and finding solutions.
Right, and just if I could add, like I'm in the feed industry as well. Like I see that end of it, and I see what the guys have to put up with, and like the chicken farmers or dairy farmers, all those different guys. I just, like, as the years have gone on, like I look back 10 years, 20 years, and I just see as the years of progression of the guys, just the load is becoming so heavy on their shoulders. I've seen guys, they just have to bail out, and it breaks my heart when I see that. So I'm just trying to give you guys context to why it's a concern of mine, because I see firsthand what this does to, the chicken farmers, the dairy farmers, for example. Now the really big guys, they can continue on, get bigger, but it's the small guys, those small family businesses that are really fighting under that load. And so I'm just trying to share my heart behind this, and how can we help those small guys who are starting up. I think of like my neighbor Luke, who we kind of started get going. He just started with 50 taps. I love seeing that entrepreneurship. That's what we want to help preserve by cutting red tape. Hopefully that helps explain my heart behind it.
Fair enough. Nelson, did you want to comment or?
Yeah. Now that Chris is gone there, he is right. Like every time that you come out with a new program, you're trying to make it better or tougher than the one before to show that you're trying to do more than you did previously. But at the same time, everybody, you go on that maple syrup making 101s and all that stuff that's on Facebook now. Bill Hubbard, he's really good at commenting on a lot of them, a lot nicerly than I am sometimes. But there's a lot of people. I have a lot of money invested in my syrup operation. Chris has spent a lot of money. Wagner's, they've spent a lot of money on their operation, and we want to protect our investments in the operation. And that's kind of where this certification or certificate of production would maybe come into play. Is because that's why all the large companies have numerous divisions, so that when something happens, it doesn't take the whole thing down, right? So that's
I think too, like getting back to what Kayla said about having your food inspector come in. We've heard of I've been involved with farmers markets for a lot of years, and often they don't actually fully understand the rules. It sounded like she had a good experience, but they don't often understand the rules around maple, and having firewood in where you're producing a food product and things like that. And even the CFIA doesn't have, from what I've heard from people with having, licensing inspections and things, do not have inspectors that really know maple. So that's a big issue, regardless of other topics.
So actually, I'm just looking at this one line here. I mean, which of course has more ramifications than the one line, but I think we probably need to change it in our approach to say that instead of serious consideration of a certification program, that we will be serious about staying on top of what is coming from a regulatory perspective, and making sure that it doesn't adversely affect our industry. Would that be more appropriate, folks?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe, sorry, Randall, I'm torn. We've got like just a couple minutes left. We've got a couple people with their hands up. Should we
Sure.
just have a quick go through there and
Yeah.
Well, if people don't
Xavier,
mind, if people
sorry?
don't mind, we can go 5 after.
Okay. Xavier, can you do something quick and then we'll go to Dan and Tracy?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I just want to touch on something that was mentioned regarding the plain language. And I think since the Strat plan is providing the backbone of the future directions and giving the board the ultimate goals of growing the sector, the GDP growth and increasing the value, those are pretty open-ended goals when you look at the 6 pillars where the board can make a lot of decisions about the future direction of OMSPA, whereas in the past, maybe the funding proposal for the Sweet Ontario campaign was much more specific, and we knew we were getting funding for the Sweet Ontario campaign. Or in this case, we might know that for the quality assurance program, we're getting funding to write a new BPM, and for the marketing campaign, we're getting funding to do a social media stream. But instead, it's generally left open with the ultimate goals written there for the board to make all the decisions.
Randall, can you speak to that or?
Well, it's partly a governance issue too, as well. You know, a strategic plan talks about the areas that you'll be working on over the next 5 years. It doesn't mean that the strategic plan comes out and the board just runs away and does everything by itself. That is not the case. And the more specific things relates to the actions to be undertaken will be consulted on with the membership and will advance or not advance based upon the members' support of them. And so it's at when we at the more specific levels of things that is where that input from members and is required.
And many of the people on here are board members, right? Like it's not like, yeah, and that's how our institution works, right? The board decides. So
yeah,
people give their input to board members. So
That's right. It's up to the membership to talk to their board of directors in their local and say, I like this idea, I don't like this idea, or, you know, can we amend it? Can we come to a compromise or something else? But it's up to the members to make sure that their directors, when they go to the provincial board, that they vote for what they were. You know, I go back to Terry Linton telling me very early on in my career here as president, he says, I'm here for my members. It's but my members that tell me what I have to vote for. And I think as of all of us as directors, we have to listen to our members. So when something important comes up, you got to take it down to your membership. Now, we've been very good with the emails and everything now that as a board, we've been able to reach out to all but 36, is it, John, of our members through emails?
about that, yeah.
Yeah, so like we're hitting a 95, 96% average. Now, I do ask a lot of people, do they read the e-letter? And about 34% or 37% do not read the e-letter where a lot of information is. So it's up to the membership to be responsible also and to read what's coming down and reading from not just from the head office, but from the directors. So there's a comment. Most members don't want to think
because
of
the
things
way
like strategic plans are actually. So yeah, and Brian, you are right. There is. I have recognized that, but it's important for the maple syrup. And I'm just talking now here as a producer now, not as the president of this organization. You know, you're talking about certification and everything. Maybe certification may be as simple as belonging to an organization and have your producer number on your stuff. Maybe that's as easy a certification as you need, and that would solve the bottle problem. That would solve we would know then everybody who is making maple syrup in Ontario, and if syrup is out there that's not up to standard, we will know instantly by it, because if there's no producer number on it, hey, he's not an OMSPA member. So so it's, you know, it's nothing's cast in stone. It's a roadmap. Again, you elected us to look after you. You know, do we want to register our sugar houses? I don't want my sugar house registered. Me as a producer, again, sure. What do you want me to do? You want me to take a food plan? I'll do that. You want me to put my producer number? I'll do that. Do I want to do a bunch of red tape? No, I do not want to do that, and I don't want my members to do that. So these are the things that we have to take in consideration. You voted us in to look after you, and we will look after you. We are not going to implement things in there that are going to cause more red tape. But again, we have to work in partnership with our government agencies.
Yeah.
And that is key. We've been working with the government for the last 30 years in getting funding. Why would we change now? The only thing is we may ask for more funding because MAFRA has limited resources at this point. And they don't give me wrong period when I say this, but some of the expertise that has been there in the decades past is not there anymore. So maybe, and I always like to use this, and this thing is, it's like teaching your 16-year-old to drive a car. You drive the car, you know how to drive the car, and all of a sudden you hand over the 16-year-old and you're in the passenger side and you have no control over this vehicle. And you don't know where it's going to go, and you're hoping it's going to stay on the road, but it may go in the ditch very fast. So let us be in control of the car and let OMAFRA be in the passenger seat, and let us take control of our destiny. Let us establish the goals that we set. And again, we as members, myself included, will set the goals of what if we're going to have a certification program. If we don't do any, that's fine with me also. But if MAFRA or some government agency comes down and says, you will do this,
Dan and Tracy,
then it's too late.
Yes, Frank spoke there for 5 minutes and it's going to take me 30 seconds. But anyways, simple. What OMSPA does for me is take care of all this certification stuff. If you're a member of OMSPA and you actually go through the BPM and everything else, and you're actually doing things that the way you are, that's where OMSPA should be behind me. Third-party certification, all good, all fine, if it's voluntary. But if I'm following what OMSPA is putting out in front of me, and I'm actually abiding by that, and like I'm not fond of putting a number on a jug, but I'm putting my name on a jug, and people know where it came from, and I'll stand behind it. But yes, I'll be a proud member of OMSPA, and they should advocate for us and taking care of all of these responsibilities as far as certification. If you actually do what OMSPA is telling me, I should be certified, but I don't have to do the paperwork. If you understand what I'm saying, very simple, straightforward.
No, it's good, and it's right. It isn't about me, it's about we. And so the whole exercise, again, I talk about being on the second page of the Toronto Star. If we have poor quality, you make great stuff, and the converted are on this call. So we've got, but I can tell you that we've got quality issues all over the place, internationally, not only here, but everywhere. And so as an association, we need to pay attention to it. I don't have a solution, and this is opening some doors to talk about a potential solution. That's really all it is.
Well, Frank, we're getting towards 10 after. So a couple people that want to comment. What's your call?
Mark Yeoman.
Go ahead, Mark.
You have to unmute, Mark. There we go.
So yeah, Bill Hubbard had brought up the CFIA certification and shipping syrup. Should OMSPA not be educating members on the current governing bodies? I know many members, including board members, that speak of shipping syrup and aren't CFIA certified. So there's governing bodies that are in front of us, and we're not following it, if that makes any sense.
And I think Mark and Diane had something to say. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, okay, you hear me?
Yep.
As far as I'm concerned, like, I can't go into the feed store and buy, certain, chemicals without my, my license number. There's nothing wrong with, I don't know, it's a nickel that some people are interested in getting all these jugs or whatever, but the jugs of branding, and we're trying to keep that as good branding. Whoever's selling it to them, the people should be able to ask their number, no different than buying anything else. So that's my feeling on it anyway.
Fair enough.
It is a simple solution to the problem, Mark, but again, I'm not here to instill any of that. We're just bringing up suggestions, and if the membership is there for it. I think that will be it for tonight, 9:09. There has been lively conversations over the last 3 nights. There has been very good input. I commend all who have been on here to with their ideas, and the executive, along with the strat plan group, will look at each one of them. The chairs will make any modifications that need to be. The final, not the final draft, but a draft of it will be in the mainline, John, in December.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, I'm correct on that. And John just tells me what to do. That's how it goes here. So, and there will be in January, well, starting November with Eastern, Randall and I will be there to discuss again the strat plan with members. And in January, we will also be traveling and going to the locals. God forbid we don't go back into a lockdown or anything else with COVID. But and I will have to apologize to the few locals that after January the 18th, I will not be available. I'll be out of the country. So, and I apologize in advance that I will not be there. But Randall will be taking my place. So, and again, I just want to thank everybody. It's been a great 3 nights, and it's been insightful. And the committees and chairs will look at all the comments and that have been mentioned tonight. And as Randall has already said, maybe we make some few changes to soften the words.
Well, not just the words, Frank, but the intentions.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Thank you, Randall.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.
John, Randall.
Yep. Still got a few folks on there, eh, John?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, folks, I'm just going to shut you off. We're just going to use this room for a little discussion afterwards. So I'm just going to remove anybody that's still on. No offense. It's the end of the meeting. There we go. Oh,
All right.
let me turn off the recording as well.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yes.